Welcome to Mental Health, It's a Trap. We're your hosts, Susan and Stephen, mother and son, unravel the complexities of the mental health traps people fall in. Join us on this podcast journey as we demystify the mental health labyrinth, explore common issues, and provide you with tools to navigate this sometimes extremely daunting terrain. You can expect engaging conversations, personal stories, and probably also have a laugh or two. Access to mental health care should not be what causes you additional stress. We invite you to follow along, and together we can embrace the darkness together.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here. Last episode, we talked about cognitive behavioral therapy and how our thoughts can impact our behaviors. And I think that was perfect because today we have a special guest with us today, Teddy Nguyen, who is going to introduce his background in social work as well as a little bit in the financial sector. So welcome, Teddy. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was super excited to have this conversation, especially coming from, the background that I do. Uh, like right now, I'm a full-time social worker. I love social work, all things mental health and social services. And I've been doing social work for the past professionally 3 or 4 years, but licensed for the last two. And about a little over a year ago, I stumbled into the space of really like incorporating personal finance stuff into social work practice. I've always loved personal finance and knowing it for myself, learning how to buy a house, learning to budget, and all this stuff, which is like super nerdy. Um, and whenever I came across this ad of like become a financial coach, I had zero idea what that was about. And I learned a little more about it. And it's really just about helping people where they're at in their money journey in the same way that we as social workers help people where they're at, whether it's facing homelessness, addiction, and things like that. It's just as financial coaches, we just do the same thing except through the language of money, helping them budget, helping them overcome even some like limiting beliefs and things like that. So yeah, I've over the past year just really putting more into the business of serving that way, using the same social work skills and my passion for personal finance and a lot of education about kind of the hope that there is out there. A lot of people live month to month, day to day, thinking like they're stuck in a cycle that they can't change. And, that financial education and really dumbing it down to make it not as complicated is what I'm passionate about, especially in a field like ours, right? Um, a field of helpers and people who are a little more in tune with the emotional side instead of the technical side. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And my business name is Lion Lamb Money. It comes from a faith foundation in personal finance, just because that's like my own personal journey and stuff. But serve really anyone who's looking for help or looking to relieve some of that financial stress they got in their life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's applicable to a lot of things, right? Even in social work, therapy, I think there's always like it's a broad term, right? Like there's no like, you're a social worker and this is who you are. And I think, if I go down a little side hole, it's like, it's frustrating because when you are a social worker, it's like, oh, this is what a social worker is. And it's like, no, like a social worker is so many things. It's not just this, discharge case manager at the hospital, or they only work as case managers. And it's like, there's so many things of being in therapy or being an admin or owning your own business or like all these different aspects. And similar to you being in finance, it's like finance isn't always to one person, but when you speak to faith, it attracts those people, but it's also knowledge that anyone can learn. So I think that's, ways for people to kind of connect better with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we talked a little bit before we hit record, that the personal finance space is filled with a lot of very technical people, right? You have your accountants, your financial advisors, financial planners, which are all very valuable in their skill set. But really, when it comes to, say, the day to day of what actually gets people stressed out, seeing the payments come out every month or seeing that they got student loans after student loans with 5 to 10% interest rate, um, you know, no amount of just planning would relieve that stress. at some point the rubber does hit the road, and you have to figure out the plan to actually put some things in motion to kind of problem solve with that. The parallel I always draw is with health.
Mm.
Like whenever you're trying to lose weight or get fit or whatever your health goal is, you can go to a doctor and get a prescription and get a plan going. You can go to a nutritionist and get some insight onto nutrient dense food and things like that. But when you go home, what are you left with? You're left with a piece of paper, and that tells you what you can do. But the person that actually sits with you week to week, helps you with the workouts, helps you with navigating the nuances of diet planning, that's your personal trainer, right? In a lot of ways, that's what financial coaches do. It's really heavy on the technical aspect of knowing the personal finance knowledge, but really connecting with people and understanding the human psyche and just human behavior and all that stuff is what I love to do, right? That's why I got into social work. Um, and more seeing as I have more conversations with people, how much money impacts mental health and vice versa, how much mental health impacts money and spending behaviors. So I'm definitely excited to talk about that.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because that was my thought of how much they impact an individual as a whole, right? So when people are living paycheck to paycheck and never being able to save or reach any financial goals, it impacts their mental health, right? Or their mental health is struggling to higher levels, which impacts their ability to even manage their finances. And I think one of the biggest challenges that people face is, who do I go to? Do I have to pay a financial advisor to help me? And so I think that that's a challenge for people, and understanding the language around what are budgets. And I don't know that we really teach that as a life skill in school. And kids go off to college, they're trying to figure out how to finance a college education. And trust me, I learned the hard way with Stephen, putting him through college with and didn't understand the differences between personal private loans and government loans. And I remember talking to a student that in the first college that Stephen went to, and she was a senior, and she was telling me, I have all this student loan debt, and then was given all these credit cards. Like, as soon as you hit 18, you get all these credit card offers. And she took up all those credit card offers, and her financial debt and credit cards was astronomical. So she's graduating college in debt so bad. How is she going to live, right? And so we're not educating people, and that impacts their mental health more. So then they stop paying loans, and I don't know, it's just a vicious cycle. So I think that having you join us can be helpful in kind of talking about what that impact looks like, where people can go to get help, and really understanding the language around how to manage finances and their
Yeah,
mental health.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, because I mean, now I think, well, I'm in Texas, and in Texas, I think they made it a requirement to put personal finance into the curriculum for high schools. But even going through it as a student, like I had zero context, right? I wasn't paying bills, I was hardly working. And one of the issues really is that contextualization of what this stuff even means, right? For a lot of college students, it's like, oh, get a credit card, build your credit, and all this stuff. But what is all that really for, right? Not saying that credit cards are bad or anything, but when you're building credit, like what is the goal of credit? Not just a number that we're trying to achieve. And same thing with a lot of other, almost like not misinformation, but it's like an emphasis on the wrong parts of personal finance, right? I really like to look at personal finance as a holistic thing because money touches pretty much every aspect of our life, right? It touches our career, our family, our kids, even our self-esteem. And, like whenever you're able to correct a lot of, say, like the money misbeliefs and mismanagement, I see a lot of times that other areas of life also improve. Same thing with, addressing mental health, because mental health stays with you 24/7, right? And so being able to, be more in tune with yourself and your body, then you could respond better in your relationships. You could respond better at work. Um, yeah, and one of the sad things I see, especially in the helping professions, but really any profession, is that whenever you're strapped with all the financial stress, you feel stuck, You feel stuck in a job you don't like. You feel stuck in a relationship you may not want to stay in, and that's kind of one of the most vulnerable feelings of that lack of control, right? And then, as y'all know, and we're probably going to talk about it a little more, that control comes out in different ways. Some people like to take that control by spending more. Some people like to take that control by not spending anything. And both sides of the spectrum can be harmful, internally with yourself, but also even with your relationships and stuff. So,
I think that's a big thing. Even, you know, again, all of us being social workers and, being in different spaces in our careers, right? And like my big thing in general with anything that I've come to look at is like no matter what information is out there, good or bad, like it's out there. So that makes it a whole lot harder to know what's right and what's wrong. And then you have these people who are, marketing and advertising, and to people who might not have that understanding of like this is good or bad, or if you're, sometimes we say impulsive, but it's like if it feels right, or if it's like your dopamine, right? All those things that like kind of we don't always think about makes us like buy programs or do things, spend money we don't have. But also sometimes when you look at like mindset, it's like sometimes they're like they tell you spend more, like if you have to spend money to make money, or if, I can't spend money that I don't have. Like so they're like similar phrases, but it's like it always feels like there's like a trap because it's like there's again all this information's out there and you don't know who to trust and what to do, and
yeah.
and people will say I'm an expert in this and do this, and then someone says I'm an expert too and this person's wrong.
Yeah, like one of the things I see a lot, especially, coming from perspective of say like life insurance or investments and things like that, like there's a market for everything, right? But not everyone fits in that market, and sometimes those products and those services are marketed to a population that may not be the best fit. And like you said, there's like no shortage of information out there online, and really encourage to the listener wherever you're at in your journey, if finances are stressful for you and you're struggling with debt, my encouragement is like really to dial into like what is stressing you out, right? Is it always seeing the payments come out? Is the relational dynamic because of the finances what's stressing you, or maybe you're feeling burnt out in your job, and really addressing kind of like the big fish first, and kind of keep your blinders on in terms of what you in your life looks like instead of comparing yourself to others. Hopefully that kind of gives you a little more direction in the parts of personal finance you should care about, instead of some of like the get rich quick stuff, or like day trading and those stuff.
Right, but think about the messages that are out there, right? Particularly around these get rich quick schemes and things like that. And, we're always chasing that, right? That part of, you know, having more, keeping up with the Joneses, like that mentality exists within our culture. And, it can be dangerous on some levels because, it's a setup for failure, right? So really looking at how each journey can be very different for each individual, right? And what works for one may not necessarily work for another, and being able to identify like what is my journey? Like my goal is this, and I think this is the struggle. I want that goal, though there are these unrealistic expectations of how to get there. And so how do you help someone scale back a little bit and start building a solid foundation versus this kind of eggshell kind of, oh, if I step over here, I'm going down.
Yeah. No, I love how you pointed that out, especially when it comes to, and you touched on it a little bit before, like the help seeking with like, where do I even start with some of this money stuff? And a lot of times people start with a financial planner, financial advisor, because those are kind of like the most common things people talk about when it comes to money. Um, the there's good fish and bad fish in any profession, right? And a lot of financial advisors are driven by the commission or the sale and things like that. I I was blessed to be able to meet a few that truly are in it for the education, the advocacy, and like really helping clients make the decision for themselves. And when you're able to find a coach and a planner or someone like that who really just works for you and works for your best interest, that's really where it's at. And there's actually, I found this out getting into financial coaching. There's quite an array of professions that are similar. So we have financial therapists, financial counselors, financial social workers. Those all have licensures attached to them, and they typically get like a certification that they lump in with their practice. So if you're looking for like mental health services where they can like diagnose you and do that kind of stuff, and you want the personal finance aspect woven into it, those are kind of the titles to look for. Financial coaching fits more under the life coaching umbrella. So it's there's no like national certification or anything like that. There are a lot of people that say they have life coaching certifications and trainings, which is true. A lot of people do offer those kinds of programs, but it's not one where it's like we can diagnose problems or we have any type of like licensing exam that we have to take. And it has positives and negatives, like with that. Because with a lot of like your mental health licensures, you're trapped to maybe one or two states or a few states that you can practice in. For coaching, you can kind of go further out than that. But it's really important to know and trust the person you're working with, that if they don't know something, then they'll tell you that they don't know. If, you know, anyone that acts like they know everything is usually a pretty big red flag, as y'all know.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing when you brought up kind of just, or talking about like so many things out there. I think people fail to stick with one thing. So doing, like you said, doing the research. So if there's someone that you like, or if someone's offering something that looks like you want to do, you know, it's like do the research. Because I think sometimes, again, when we think about like impulsivity, is sometimes we just do things before we actually like, who is this person? Like, how long have they been posting? Like, what are their certifications? And I think that also when we think about even just social media, like people will throw out ideas and opinions and sometimes even articles, right? They can be professional articles, but they can contradict each other. So it's like, again, kind of gets in that rabbit hole of like, who's right and who's wrong? Or it's like, no, I'm right because I saw this article and I posted it, but I didn't read it at all.
Yeah, and that so much has to play in the play in the world of trust, especially online. Like, who is this person, right? What are their incentives for telling me this information? You know, what is even their story? And yeah, like I think it's in a lot of ways, not saying that big corporations are bad, but it's you know, there's not like a single person to be like, I see who that person is and I can trust or not trust them. And there are a lot of really great organizations out there. And there's a lot of really bad just individuals out there, right? So it exists on both sides of the spectrum. And any encouragement that I can give in that area, you know, like really think about what is their incentive, right? Are they trying to sell you on something? Not saying that selling is necessarily bad, but like if you're working with someone, if you're working with a coach or a counselor, are they really advocating for your best interests and really giving you that decision, right? Instead of making that decision for you. And sometimes, you know, as even mental health practitioners, when we work with clients, we think that something's better for the client, but in actuality, it's their life. They are the experts of their own life. And so in the same way, when you're seeking out help with your personal finance, you are the expert of your own experience, and you're seeking guidance from them, not for them to do all the work for you, right? So yeah, to anyone out there looking to get some help in that area, there are a lot of wonderful coaches that you just talk to and get to know. A lot of them have social media profiles you can check out, videos. Like I personally am doing more Facebook group oriented stuff, so regular conversations and group interaction, that's what I love to do. And doing like weekly calls, just free. If they want to attend, they can attend, ask their questions, and just cover content like that. And then if people choose to sign up for coaching, I'd be more than happy to serve them that way. But it's definitely not the type of coaching where I'm like, let me try to sell you on something for me to make money, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, we talked about that a little bit about with motivational interviewing, and then just finding a therapist in general. It's just like when you go to therapy, it's like hopefully you have an idea of where you want to be, right? Because usually you're in pain, you're suffering, you don't like something, you're arguing, maybe you're depressed or anxious, but you don't have a diagnosis, and it's like, what does the end result look like? Versus some people who might just go to therapy and they're like, oh, I don't, people are pushing me to go here, or it's mandated, so I have to do this. So there's no
Hmm.
choice or perceived choice of how I want to get better or how I want things to change versus being forced to, or like not putting the effort in because it's our lives. So it's like sometimes some people will go to a therapist and expect them to fix them, but they don't want to be fixed. So when they get, advice or suggestions, they push back. And so it's an interesting little like dance or, kind of argument that might happen, but it's also an internal thing that happens as well.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, sometimes people treat mental health practitioners as the solution, right? As a prescription or whatever, but really there's a partnership, like they're only as effective as you allow them to be, and you becoming a person who's coachable or open-minded and things like that is what really the analogy I use, it really like creates fertile soil for things to grow and for you to really have strong roots. Same thing with coaching or any area of development. I personally have been very stubborn in my life. I'll be the first to admit it. Well, second to admit it. My wife would be the first one to admit it. But yeah, like really, really that attitude of, you know, I'm not trying to find a solution. I'm trying to find a helper, a partner through whatever I'm going through. Um, and kind of on the flip side of that, like I'm the first one to say, not everyone needs a financial coach or therapist or anything like that. There are a lot of other cost-effective ways to seek out help, especially when it comes to financial stress. Like there's one class that I lead. It's called Financial Peace University. If any listeners are familiar with Dave Ramsey's program, and it really does take a bare bones look at what's important about personal finance. What are the needs and knows? What are the scams? And what are the things that really matter in life to focus on? And I love being able to coordinate those classes. All the coordinators that do it for free. It's a volunteer thing, but it's just because the passion to do that and share kind of that hope that we found in healthy money management. Um, that's honestly what I live for when it comes to all things personal finance, seeing those transformations. But yeah, like that course right now is like $80 to go through the whole course, or like I think 120 for a subscription for the whole year, including a lot of other benefits and things like that. Which is, if $120 can change your life, if it can save you $10,000 a year, like it's almost free in my opinion. But
Mm-hmm.
like obviously y'all can see it for yourself. They have free trials. I don't get kickback or paid for saying this. It's just because I genuinely believe in the product. um, but yeah, plenty of resources, and YouTube 100% free. Lots of really great videos on YouTube of just like how to save money, how to find cost effective mental health providers, right? Like sliding, I didn't even know about sliding scale providers until I
Mm.
was like really picking around. I always thought it had to be through insurance or some kind of costly private pay, but no, there are interns who do therapy. There are group settings that are cheaper and things like that. So I'm all about being cost effective, even if I don't have like a financial benefit. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. And I think people appreciate honesty and transparency, right? Whether with their finances or their mental health, and I think it's important to provide that to people when you talk about, a collaboration, and a partnership with a client, is to be able to build that trust and honesty. I mean, I've had people come to me for therapy, and um, not always forthcoming with a lot of things, right? They'll
Yeah.
expect us to know all the pieces, and so I'm pretty open with people that I work with, and I say, you can come in here and tell me what you want to tell me and share what you want to share, and know that we can only work on what you share. So if there's parts that you don't bring in, then those parts kind of stay on the bookshelf until you're ready to bring them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I find really interesting about money is that like when people are talking with their friends and their family, um, a lot of times they're more comfortable talking about their sex life than they are talking about their finances. And it's interesting because I think that comes from maybe it's a cultural thing or maybe it's how you were brought up and things like that. But really, like a lot of our self-esteem and value is tied to our money or at least how people view us, right? Um, we want to do the right things with money, look the right way, and kind of living for other people. That's that's really the part that starts affecting the mental health. Because at the end of the day, they don't walk away with our money problems; we keep them. And yeah, really with that, being open and vulnerable about money problems is absolutely hard. I mean, seeking out mental health help is hard in an honest way, right? And so hopefully, like anyone who's listening out there, if you find that support in your life, just a friend, family, community, or someone like that that you don't have to pay for, that's free. That's an absolute gem because just simply unloading a lot of that stress will unloading a lot of those burdens that you carry in silence, even if the numbers don't change, even if you don't get any advice or anything, that does a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good, as much as it is a good reminder, it's a really good tip because I don't think
Mm-hmm.
people value or like understand like how helpful it is just to talk about the things you're going through, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's also helpful to know what you're looking for, right? Like, are you looking for advice? Are you looking for someone to listen? Or do you need that financial help, right? So is it, hey, I need $100 to pay my utilities? Or is it, I'm frustrated because I feel stuck at my job and I can't get the raise, and getting the raise would help me, X, Y, and Z, get more money and pay the bills? Or do you just want someone to vent and be there for you, right? So I think it's helpful to also know that, like, what is your goal, or what are you looking to get out of the conversation? Because if you're just looking for someone to vent to, you're not going to want them to give you advice or tell you what to
Mm-hmm.
do. You can just say, hey, I'm struggling right now and I just want to get this off my chest. I'm going to vent. I just need you to listen. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for some feedback, or I need some support. Like, can you help me out? Resources. Because I think that's the thing. We're not taught that either. We're not taught how to ask for help. So we
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Yeah, no, like that, the power of relationships is incredible, right? Outside of money. And I see that a lot in like addiction recovery. Like one of the reasons why relapse happens is because they don't have people to talk to or they don't seek out help for people um, to really support them. And I think that's like step 11 or 12 of like the 12 steps of really just giving back, staying connected, and all that stuff because I've been through it myself, fair share of addictions, like related to like food and relationships and things like that. During those periods, like COVID was horrible, right? Like not talking to anyone and having all the, access to the food. Like I ate my heart out and gained a whole bunch of weight just because at the time I was doing really well with food habits and things like that. Um, but yeah, all of these frameworks and patterns in our life, whether it's health, mental health, money, it's all the same thing. And I hope that makes it a lot more digestible for people, that money doesn't have to be this stuffy topic that only like the rich people understand. But really, it's just an extension of what you're already doing in your life. It's just a little different language. That's all.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, before we end the episode, are there any other additional tips, like one or two other tips that you would offer someone who might be looking for financial help?
Yeah, I mean, um, kind of my go-to is like really looking at the people who are where you want to be, right? Not just have the bank account and stuff, but maybe even have the marriage or have kind of that insight into life, that wisdom, um, and seeing if those relationships are one that you can build and nurture and have those conversations. Obviously, I sound super biased by saying this, but reach out to a financial coach, kind of get some insight and direction, even where to go. And if you feel like they're being salesy or trying to get a dollar from you, then there are plenty of other coaches you can reach out to. In fact, I advise that you talk to 4 or 5 coaches because even if that coach can help you, they may not be the right person, right? Like I personally, there are certain personalities that I just am able to communicate better with. And, if you want to reach out to someone, um, like I obviously you can drop my contact information, all that stuff down below. And if it's something I can't really like help you with, I know a few other coaches that can. Me personally, I don't touch a lot of veteran benefits and things like that. I don't touch bankruptcy, foreclosure, but I do talk about overspending habits because my background's in addiction. So yeah, in a lot of ways, like whenever you have some kind of physical ailment, sometimes you can go to Google and try to diagnose it yourself, and you can make some progress, right? But just if they offer a free consultation, like what's the pain? Use like 4 or 5 free consultations, um, and really the biggest part is know your gut, trust your gut, because there are a lot of things that you don't catch consciously that are signs for um, just some kind of distrust, right? Like something about the way they said this, or maybe they're talking too fast, or something like that. As simple as that. Uh, Trust your intuition and how you feel, and if you can really find someone that you could fully be open with and not worry about the judgment, and you trust their expertise in the area, I think they will be a really great person to point you in the right direction to kind of take those next steps.
Cool. And a little thing that I will add is also more of do your research, but you don't have to be the
Mm-hmm.
expert, right? So like talk with a friend, find, see a financial coach who offers the free sessions, and also do a little research. Like you don't have to be the expert in your problems, but if you do a little
Mm-hmm.
research on the coaches or the people you're reaching out to, it gives you a better understanding of who they are. And you might even want to skip like, oh, I don't like this person because they don't have the same values that I do, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
talk to them anyway and say, hey, these are the values that I see on your YouTube or on your Instagram. Could you tell me a little more about that so that you can get that information? Like ask the questions that you want to know so that again, building relationships and connecting. And if you don't connect with them, then I think I said this with my mom is like when you find a therapist, like yes, they're the professional and they might be like the expert, but you're their boss. You're
Yeah,
paying them
you
to
hired them. Yeah.
so fire them quickly if you don't like them, and don't be
Mm-hmm.
like, and because I've heard this before too, like, oh, like I just talk and talk and talk. Like people are aware that they're talking in therapy and they're not, getting better or fixing their problems or getting their
Mm-hmm.
problems fixed, and they're aware of that, but they're okay. So it's like kind of again that awareness part too. It's like you know what you're doing, but you know don't dig your hole. If it's not working out, like just let them know, hey, thank you for the last 2 or 3 sessions, how many you had, but I don't feel like it's a good fit, and I'm gonna go pursue a different therapist or coach or whatever kind of spot you're in.
Yeah, and I really love, the mission of what y'all are doing with the podcast because like destigmatizing mental health and kind of bridging that almost like authority gap, right? Between, oh, we're the mental health providers and we're the experts, and so you just come to us and we fix your problems. I think what y'all are doing to really make it a lot more um, realistic and just applicable to day-to-day life, where there are alternatives to speaking to a clinician. Not everyone needs a diagnosis in order, not everyone needs medication and things like that. Really making it applicable and putting it into context of, is this like for a lot of people who like, am I, you know, majorly depressed or am I going through grief, right? And things like that. And y'all, what you're doing is really awesome. Like I said, destigmatizing it, making it approachable. One of the sayings I like is that you're putting on the cookies on the cookie shelf where everyone can reach them, right? You're not using technical language, although you could. Same thing with me, like when the financial coaching space, I could talk all these like numbers and stats and economy and all this and that, but no one, no one cares about that. They just want to care that you understand their experience, um, and just are able to help them along, empower them really to make their own decisions, empower them to find the right providers and find the right resources. So I love what you're doing, and it was an honor to just have this conversation. I really enjoy getting to know both of you, and hopefully in the future do kind of more episodes like this, current events, tactical skills. I know y'all also have like breath work stuff you work on, and incorporating that with emotional triggers. Like I think the ideas are endless. But yeah, it's been awesome being here.
Cool.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us as well.
Thanks.
All right. So again, just like my mom said, we appreciate you being here, Teddy. Thank you for our listeners. And as I always say, if there are any questions or comments, leave them, down below. And then if you want to reach out, we'll put Teddy's information there. Or again, you can ask them and I can forward them along. And, I always say we work together as a community. And, that's always been my big thing, is helping people out and sharing resources and letting people know what is out there, because a lot of people just don't know. So even just sharing and providing that information is beneficial. So thank you for being here with us today, Teddy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just one last thing, if you are looking for just a place to have some brief, quick answers and stuff like that, our Facebook group is called Journey to Financial Wellness, really about not becoming rich, but having a rich life. And as part of that, I'm active, and there are actually a few other financial coaches I trust in there to answer your questions, right? That tell you, this is a scam and this is what you should do and all that stuff. So you just go to Facebook and type in Journey to Financial Wellness. Yeah, you'll be able to find it there.
Cool. All right. Take care.
All right. Yeah, thank y'all.
Huh.